What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. And today is a special episode. We're going to be reviewing WWE's Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and I've got a guest host with me reviewing Money in the Bank, Matt Bayliss. You've heard him on the podcast many times before, and welcome back to the podcast, Matt. Great to have you on board.
Hi, John. Yeah, thanks for having me back again.
No, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. So before we go back to Matt and start reviewing the show, just a few plugs to throw out there. You can follow the show, Wrestling with Johners, of course, on Twitter. Our handle on Twitter is @withjohners_pod. We're on Instagram as well, so go and check us out on there. That's instagram.com/Wrestling with Johners. And, of course, you can go and join our ever interactive and fun Facebook group. Just search Wrestling with Johners. You can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Castbox, Stitcher, YouTube, Anchor, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening to us on Apple iTunes, please don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. So, Matt, welcome back to the show. First question I have for you. Did you watch the Money in the Bank pre-show? Did you catch the pre-show with Daniel Bryan and Rowan versus Usos?
Yeah, I managed to watch the whole thing from the pre-show all the way through to the very end. So, I thought the pre-show was quite interesting. I think probably the highlight from it was when they had Sonya Deville on, because she was actually on there in character a lot of the time. You sort of, they're more sort of being analysts and everything, but she was actually on there in character. Then, and then obviously escalated from there, which was quite interesting and a bit of a change to what they normally do, just talking through the card.
Yeah, so I didn't see that part of the pre-show. Did she have anything interesting to say?
No, they were just kind of grilling her about sort of like the relationship between her and Mandy Rose. And then was it Sophia Vega interrupted as well, and so they were having a bit of back and forth, and then it's kind of talking about the men's ladder match as well. So I think it was, it was just something a little bit different. It wasn't sort of like earth-shattering, but it was something a bit of a change from the norm.
Yeah, I mean, but the one thing we all saw from the pre-show, I think it probably had more eyeballs on this pre-show than many pre-shows before it. But the tag match, of course, Daniel Bryan was one of the kind of main event stars, carrying the WWE Championship into WrestleMania last month, and this time around he's in the pre-show. I get the feeling this match was kind of thrown together at the last minute. I know it was only announced a few days prior to this show, possibly on Tuesday SmackDown. But you've got the newly crowned SmackDown Tag Team Champions, Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan, and they were going up against the Usos. Now, I know the Usos are kind of synonymous with the championships they've won and all the hard work on SmackDown, but are they officially a Raw team nowadays? Wasn't there some sort of shake-up a few weeks ago where they got drafted to Raw, and then almost within a week or so they were back on SmackDown challenging Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan? I mean, what did you make of this match, Matt? Because a bit of a strange thrown together match, but did you think it was a bit strange that that the Usos are meant to be a Raw team challenging for the SmackDown championships?
Yeah, I think it was definitely hastily put together, and all pretty much courtesy of the suddenly invoked wildcard rule from the last 2 weeks. Because, they only did the shake up 2 weeks before that, so obviously again. So it's strange. I mean, I really like the Usos, and so I never mind seeing them in a tag title match. But yeah, it seemed a bit strange, and I think to see the Usos are arguably one of the best tag teams, and then obviously Daniel Bryan on this side, who's arguably one of the best singles wrestlers as well, and seeing them both on the pre-show was a little bit strange. The silver lining to it was that the cruiserweight title wasn't on the pre-show, and that actually made it onto the main show. So, there is an upside to it. But I did think it was strange, but it was a pretty good little match between them. I don't think it went too long, but it was pretty decent. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I mean, I enjoyed the match as well. And the thing I like about the Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan dynamic is I do like the tag teams with like the big guy and the smaller guy. I mean, I remember about 94, 95 when you had Diesel and Shawn Michaels. And I thought that was a really cool tag team, and enjoyed the kind of big man, little man dynamic. And you've kind of got the same thing here, really, to a certain degree. And Rowan seems to be getting the Daniel Bryan rub as well. So it's definitely good for his career. But yeah, it was an enjoyable match. I haven't really got any notes on it, to be honest with you, but I know that, and this was actually a non-title match. So kind of contradicting myself from what I said earlier on, it was actually a non-title match, but it sounds like this is a program that's going to continue between these two teams. And no doubt the Usos will probably get a SmackDown title shot against Daniel Bryan and Rowan, in a few weeks' time, or maybe at the next pay-per-view. But this was a non-title match, and hence the Usos got the win. I believe it was from a double frog splash onto Daniel Bryan in the end, and they kind of pinned Daniel Bryan. I think that was the end of the match, wasn't it, Matt?
Yeah,
double frog splash.
And yeah, I mean, like I say, I mean, it was, it was decent. The Usos did what the Usos do, and I agree with you about the dynamic with Rowan and Daniel Bryan as well. I think it does work really well. Just hope they give them someone to get their teeth into going forwards.
Yeah, definitely. But moving on to the main show, and the first match on the main card was the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. So I'll just go through the participants, not necessarily in order that they came out to the ring, but you had Naomi, Dana Brooke, Natalya, Ember Moon, Bayley, Carmella, Mandy Rose, and Nikki Cross. And of course, Nikki Cross is a late replacement for Alexa Bliss, who was pulled from the match earlier on in the week. It sounds like she's got some injury, possibly another concussion. I know she's got a bit of a history with concussion, but she has tweeted out since it originally was announced that she wasn't going to be in the match that she is fine. It's not career threatening, so she's plans to continue wrestling. There was some concern there when it was first announced that she was pulled from the match, but nice to see Nikki Cross in the match here. Going into the match, I think a lot of people were looking for one of the newer superstars to take the briefcase, including maybe Mandy Rose, Ember Moon, possibly Bayley. But Nikki Cross was, as I said, the last minute replacement for Alexa. And I think she quickly became a lot of people's favourite going into the match, mainly because we haven't seen an awful lot from her since she got pulled up onto the main roster in any sort of wrestling or storyline capacity. Who are your kind of favourites, your picks going into this match ahead of Sunday night?
Well, Bayley's always my favourite, regardless of what's going on. But yeah, I think I agree. I mean, it wouldn't be unlike him to push Nikki Cross, just for having her in at the end, and I think her sort of like psychotic character fits in with the madness of a ladder match as well. So I was quite disappointed that it was Mandy Rose, not Sonya Deville, to be honest. I think, in my opinion, Sonya Deville's probably got the bigger upside going forwards, but yeah, it was quite an open match, and they could have gone sort of like any one of 8 routes, obviously, with it. So, so it was full of some good spots, like even at the start where Nikki Cross was trapping everyone in the ring apron, and they did use the ladders quite a lot as well. So it was an impressive match and a really good way to start the show as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the key spots from the match, we've got Nikki Cross. She went wild with the ladder, kind of doing her kind of aeroplane spin with the ladder, decking all of her opponents in the process. Nikki Cross then takes a nasty bump into one of the ladders propped up in the corner. The match, as you quite rightly said, was fast and furious from word go, basically. Carmella gets walked to the back, appearing to have injured her left leg. I didn't really catch the spot when that happened, but she went to the back with some of the officials there. Bayley then gets taken out of the match after being squashed between a ladder before being hit with a split-legged moonsault from Naomi whilst Bayley was laid on a ladder there. So that looked pretty painful, taking Bayley out of the match for a few seconds. Ember Moon then hits a pretty awesome eclipse off of one of the ladders that was actually stood up outside of the ring onto Natalya, who was inside the ring, and that got a holy shit chant from the fans. Mandy Rose hits a bed of roses onto Ember Moon onto one of the ladders. Carmella makes a heroic comeback, beating Mandy Rose down on the rampway before climbing the ladder to get the briefcase, only to be attacked by Sonya Deville. Now, you mentioned Sonya earlier on. She wasn't one of the participants, but she's a buddy cohort of Mandy Rose, of course. Sonya then puts Mandy Rose on her shoulders, carried Mandy up on the ladder, but with Mandy having one hand on the briefcase, Bayley then makes a recovery. Bayley shoves Deville and Rose off the ladder, unhooks the briefcase, and Bayley is our new Miss Money in the Bank. So Bayley is kind of the briefcase holder, and I'm sure that makes you a very happy man. I kind of thought of you when Bayley pulled the briefcase down. What did you think of the match overall, and what did you think of the winner?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I mean, Bayley's always number one for me, really. But I think, yeah, it was a really good match. They did a lot of different stuff. Naomi's someone that I don't particularly like that much, but a couple of spots that she got in, and the bit with Nikki Cross doing the airplane spin with the ladder.
Yeah,
Naomi had a hell of a bump in that as well. Like, she really threw herself into the ladder, which was definitely got some sort of like respect from me. So, but yeah, I mean, I really liked it. It was it had a really good pace to it. There wasn't too much where there wasn't anything happening, and it kept going really well. The Carmella injury was an interesting one because it was a really sort of a bit of a nothing incident. Like, I think the foot of the ladder maybe hit her in the knee or something. But at the time, I thought it was legitimate. But then obviously she came back out at the end, so I really don't know. So, but her reaction when it happened, I think Mandy Rose went to carry on sort of fighting with her, and she just kind of pushed away and tiptoed out of the ring. So, she either sold it brilliantly for what it was, or it was a genuine injury. So, yeah, but it's just strange that she did come back afterwards. But overall, I think all the participants were made to look really good, and it shows like the depth of talent they've got at the moment as well.
Definitely. And it looks like there's possibly going to be some heat on SmackDown this week between Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville over what happened there. But a good opener, an entertaining match. All the participants definitely, put their bodies on the line and took some bumps, but a really good opener. And Bayley cut a promo after the match saying that she is not just Bayley, she is Miss Money in the Bank. So good for her. We'll talk more about Bayley later on in this podcast episode. We then see Triple H on his phone backstage when Sami Zayn interrupts Triple H, asking where I think he asked where Shane was. I'm not entirely sure why he asked for Shane. Sami Zayn appeared to be concerned about Braun Strowman and appears to be anxious over Strowman and him getting involved in the match tonight. Zayn says that he needs protection. Triple H tells Sami Zayn to tape up his fists and get out of his office. Then we move on to our next match. This one is for the United States Championship. So this was a bit of a strange match as well, but with a champion Samoa Joe defending against Rey Mysterio. So the match didn't go too long. Pretty much straight off, Rey Mysterio hits a seated senton onto big Samoa Joe, appearing to injure his nose or possibly break Joe's nose in the process. Joe then channels his inner Walter by hitting Rey with an almighty chop across the chest. Rey then reverses a powerbomb into Hurricane Rana, hooking Joe's leg and getting the surprise 3 count with Joe's left shoulder appearing to be quite visibly off the mat. The match lasted about 4 minutes. Dominic congratulates his father on the outside after winning the US title. However, Joe is not done. He attacks Rey Mysterio on the rampway before smashing Rey with 2 Uranages and a senton in the ring. And just like their match at WrestleMania, this was a super quick match, and it looks like the storyline between Rey, Joe and Dominic continues. However, it does look like they were told to go home early, possibly because of Joe's broken nose. So what's your thoughts on this match? I'm guessing that it was likely to be a Rey Mysterio outcome regardless of how long this match was meant to go. But a quick match. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a bit strange. So yeah, I think maybe they did kind of cut it short because of the injury, maybe. But I mean, the finish was terrible. I mean, Joe was nearly sat upright when the ref counted his shoulders down. So it just seemed wrong. You never know. Maybe there's something more to it, and maybe it's there's already a plan going forward with it or something. But it wasn't like a simple error or anything like that. And it was just it just looked terrible. So it kind of put a bit of a dampener on it. I like Samoa Joe. I think he's done quite well as a champion with what he's had to work with. So maybe losing that title means he might be able to move on to bigger and better things going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of both of these two competitors. I kind of like the inclusion of Dominic as well. I personally, I'd like to see, and I actually put in my prediction show that I'd like to see Dominic maybe turn on his father and align with Samoa Joe, which could be quite a good storyline. But looks like we're going to get more from this group of wrestlers, and no doubt the conclusion to this match will play out in some sort of storyline, possibly on Tuesday this week on SmackDown. Moving on to the next match, The Miz versus Shane McMahon. So these two had a pretty good match at WrestleMania. I really enjoyed their Falls Count Anywhere match, to be honest with you, and some of the bumps that Shane and The Miz, for that matter, took during that match were pretty outstanding. This time, keeping them contained within a steel cage. They've had a reasonably good storyline going into this match. But it wasn't kind of one of the matches I was really looking forward to ahead of this show. Just to go through some of the key spots within the match, Miz takes control of the match after a steel chair gets inserted into the ring. Miz gets a 2 count, which many believed should have been a 3 count or a pinfall victory for Miz after Shane put his foot on the ropes. I didn't realise that you could have kind of rope breaks during a steel cage match, but maybe that's more for submissions, I don't know. In one scary spot, the Miz pulls Shane off the top of the cage, with Shane kind of hitting the ring with a huge back bump. The Miz follows this up with a rather awkward looking frog splash, and that only gets a 2 count. Shane attempts to climb the cage, only to be stopped on top of the cage by The Miz. It looks like there's going to be a suplex spot until Shane is able to wriggle free from his shirt, drop into the floor from the cage, and all that Miz has to show for his efforts is Shane O'Mac's shirt. So Shane McMahon wins the cage match against The Miz, and The Miz falls short once again. What did you think of this one? I was kind of interested in the match the longer it went, but it wasn't kind of one of the better matches of the night. What did you like or dislike about this match, Matt?
I think before the show even kicked off, this match kind of stuck out like a sore thumb compared to the rest of the card. So I expect it to probably be my low light of the night, and it definitely didn't disappoint me in that respect. I think that the longer it went on, it was just a case of waiting to see how Shane would sneakily win or who would get involved or anything like that. I think the referee took the limelight at one point as well, because there was a point where Miz had Shane in the figure 4, and Shane got to the ropes and the ref refused to break, because obviously in a steel cage match, no DQ, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. And then having his foot on the rope to break the pin, surely that wouldn't matter either. But again, I maybe need to read upon the made up WWE to get around that one. But I mean, it just seems strange to me, like the amount of punishment that Shane took, and then all of a sudden he kind of like put the triangle choke on Miz, which he still can't execute very well. So I was kind of just glad when it was over. I do like the Miz, and I think he should really be moving on to bigger and better things than feuding with Shane, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I got the feeling this program is probably going to continue with another gimmick match, I'm sure. But like I say, it wasn't as good as their WrestleMania match, not very memorable. And but Shane McMahon gets another cheap victory over The Miz, you could say. We then see Sami Zayn hanging upside down and appearing to be unconscious after seemingly having been attacked by Braun Strowman, or Braun Strowman certainly getting the blame for attacking Sami Zayn. We then go to our next match, which is for the Cruiserweight Championship. So you mentioned earlier how refreshing it was to have a Cruiserweight Championship match on the main card, because typically they're on the pre-show. It was great to have them on the main card, as I mentioned, but just a shame that they haven't had some of the better pre-show cruiserweight matches on the main card instead of this one. But you had Tony Nese defending his cruiserweight championship, which of course is the championship he won at WrestleMania over Buddy Murphy, and we haven't seen very much of Buddy Murphy since he got brought up onto the main roster. But Tony Nese here going up against Ariya Daivari. So this was a fun match with Nese nearly retaining his championship after a 450 splash. Daivari gets a close near fall of his own after a super kick and a pretty stiff lariat. Nice gets the win with his running knee, or running niece, in the corner. I think they call it, to retain the Cruiserweight Championship. And like I say, what I loved about this was the fact that they were given that shop window on the main card. Tell us about your thoughts on this match. Looks like it was a good match, good entertaining match. I haven't been following their storyline or their program on 205 Live, to be honest with you, so I wasn't quite aware of any sort of backstory going into it. But a match kind of within itself, I thought it was okay, and I think Tony Nese seems to be coming into his own as Cruiserweight champion.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It wasn't the most high profile of Cruiserweight matches compared to what we've seen on pre-shows in the past, but I enjoyed it. It was, fast-paced match. It was there's a lot of ebb and flow to it. The crowd were pretty much behind it as well, which was good, because I know there's been, I think, some of the consideration for why they go on the pre-shows that people aren't interested. I think clearly the fans showed that they are. It was a good sort of hard-hitting, fast-paced match that you'd expect from the Cruiserweight. So I think it kind of, as a demonstration of what they can do, I think it worked quite well.
Yeah, and just to kind of back up what you said there, I felt one thing that did carry this match was the fans did seem quite into it, to be honest with you. And I know that when they used to show the Cruiserweight division on Monday Night Raw, the crowd were dead and not into the action at all. But I think the more exposure they get, and I'm sure this match will be good for that, the more the fans are going to be familiar with the characters and into the action. But I'm glad that the fans got into this. So, very good. And then we get Triple H backstage, talking to Braun Strowman about the attack on Sami Zayn. Braun pleads innocence and says that he doesn't know what happened. Triple H tells Braun Strowman to leave the building. It's then reported that Sami has been taken to a local medical facility. But the question remains, if Braun didn't attack Sami Zayn, then who did? So Sami Zayn is removed from the ladder match because of that attack. We then get an advert for Monday Night Raw, which was last night at the point of recording this, where Mick Foley is going to be unveiling a new championship belt. So there was speculation for 24 hours over what this championship might be. Might it be the hardcore title? Will it be a Legends title? Well, we can talk about it now, Matt, because it's already happened. But it's actually the 24/7 championship. So I suppose in one sense very similar to the hardcore title, but no weapons. There's been a lot of talk about this on social media. First of all, what are your thoughts on kind of the idea of the 24/7 championship and that bout? Tell us your thoughts, Matt.
So in principle, I really like it, and it could be fun, and depending on how they do it. I mean, I think with social media and the network and everything, then I've put online, I'd love them to like interrupt shows on the network and just say, look what's happening, and you get Crash Holly being chased around a play center or something like that. So
it would be good.
So in principle, maybe give it a bit of time. I know David Anderson's been on social media today, and he sort of said, give it a few months and then we'll see what they actually do with it. You'd like to think they've got some kind of plan for it going forwards, and hopefully they've invested more time in that plan than they did on the design for the belt, because the actual belt itself looks horrific.
It does.
Yeah, it does. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like a giant wristwatch. I don't like the title, but I do kind of like the idea, and I'm interested to see what they do with it going forward, and sort of, does it go across all the brands? Does it, is it here, there, and everywhere? And just kind of, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for the time being. Yeah,
I mean, I quite enjoyed the 24/7 rule when they had the hardcore title back in the day, but it wasn't a title to be taken seriously. It did turn into a bit of a joke. I remember one WrestleMania where the championship changed hands about 7 or 8 times in one match. And that was quite fun, because I think Molly Holly got involved, and there was pinfalls throughout the night. It is a card. It is a title that could, it could help mid-card or lower tier wrestlers get a bit of TV time and possibly get a championship. But it's certainly going to help the kind of mid-card and the lower tier guys, which I think is good for them. So I think in one night last night, the championship got held by 3 individuals. I think Titus O'Neil was the first to kind of pluck it from the ring. He kind of was the first champion just by kind of running to the ring and grabbing it first, I understand. And then Bobby Roode pins Titus O'Neil on the rampway, and then later on that night, R-Truth pins Bobby Roode. So it's already had 3 champions in probably the space of an hour or two. But no, it could be fun. And like you said, and like David Anderson said, we just give it time to see how it develops and what happens from there. But some might say, it's one too many titles, or maybe, we've already got a few too many titles already. But it's a different type of championship, and it could add a bit of fun as well, and a bit of a hark back to the Attitude Era with the hardcore title, I suppose. But moving on, and another championship match, we've got Becky Lynch versus Lacey Evans. So this is the first of 2 matches, 2 championship defenses from Becky Lynch here. This is for the Raw Women's Championship, however. I don't know. I kind of struggled to watch this match, to be honest with you. And maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but it just appeared a little bit sloppy in places, and you could hear Becky calling spots. And we know that Lacey is still fairly green in the ring. We haven't really seen her in any more than 1 or 2 matches since she's come up onto the main roster. Her gimmick started with was walking up and down the rampway, but it was okay. It was okay. I think Lacey's character is excellent. I believe she just needs a little bit more ring time before she's ready for any future championship opportunities, in my opinion. And I'd say the match was okay. Becky did retain her Raw championship with her disarmor submission. However, Becky was about to head back to the locker room when Charlotte Flair's music started up, and it looks like Becky will be defending her SmackDown Championship in back-to-back matches. So first of all, before we move on to anything Charlotte Flair related, what did you think of her match against Lacey Evans? Am I kind of being a bit too critical on Lacey and kind of how this match went?
No, I think there were some sloppy elements to it, including the finish as well. But I enjoyed, of the 2 women's championship matches, I enjoyed this one a lot more. I think Lacey was possibly a victim of having so much going on around it. I think if it had just been a straight one-on-one, just building her and Becky, they would have been able to do a little bit more with it, and I think it would have come across a little bit better. But I do like Lacey. And I think if anyone got their hands on a handkerchief, then that's probably on eBay now for about but I quite enjoyed it. But yeah, I do agree with you that it wasn't the most sort of like structured match, and it didn't run all that smoothly. But it was okay, and I think it's kind of like it's put Lacey Evans on the map a little bit, and then obviously sort of like with the fallout of the Money in the Bank, sort of seeing where she goes from there.
Definitely. But it did go straight into Becky Lynch's second title defense against Charlotte Flair. Now, this one is for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So poor Becky's just spent the last 8 to 10 minutes in the ring with Lacey Evans. I did have a feeling that this was going to happen. I did have a feeling that Becky was going to get stitched up one way or another. So very smart of Flair to come out when she did, and Flair doesn't wait to be asked before laying in the boots and chops to the champ. There's an exchange of lefts and rights between these 2 before Charlotte goes after Becky's injured left leg. Charlotte then goes for the natural selection on the ring apron, but Becky cleverly holds onto the ropes, causing Charlotte Flair to land hard on the floor on the outside. However, as the referee is counting Charlotte on the outside, Lacey Evans comes back out to nail Becky Lynch with her women's right hook. Out of view of the referee, of course, because he's paying attention to Charlotte, who's still on the outside. Flair gets back into the ring, nails Becky with a big boot. Charlotte then hooks the leg of Becky Lynch and gets the 3 count, thanks, of course, to the outside interference from Lacey Evans. And then we have a SmackDown Women's Champion. So no longer do we have Becky 2 bouts, but she's lost her championship to Charlotte Flair. I think that makes her a 9 times Women's Champion shared between Raw and SmackDown. Then there's a post-match beatdown of Becky Lynch from Lacey Evans and Charlotte. that then goes into the crowd are all shouting and for Bayley to make an appearance. Now they're all rooting for Bayley to come out. And then Bayley does come out with her money in the briefcase in hand. She saves her buddy, Becky Lynch. Charlotte goes to charge Bayley, only for Charlotte to miss and goes headfirst into the middle turnbuckle, seemingly knocking herself out in the process. So before we get into the next section of what happens next, what did you think of the Charlotte and Becky Lynch match? So I thought it was slightly better. I personally found it slightly better than the Lacey Evans match. You thought that it was the other way around. What did you think of Charlotte versus Becky?
Yeah, I just think they're just hell bent on making Charlotte like the 100-time champion, and and she is good. I mean, take nothing away from her in-ring ability. It's but it just seems that the fact that she's being kind of like forced into everything, and I don't know if it's just a way of getting heat for her or what it is, but it kind of just switches me off to it a little bit. And I know they've had far better matches in the past. And obviously doing the matches back to back, obviously it was going to sort of, have that element of it, because obviously Becky's just been through a match, Charlotte's fresh. But yeah, I'd kind of just switched off to it a little bit, I think, at that point. There's a couple of good spots. I think you mentioned about sort of like Lacey coming down and hitting the woman's right without the ref seeing it because he was facing the other way. To be honest, the way the night went, I think if the ref was looking straight at it, he probably still would have missed it. So,
very true, yeah.
But then it all kind of built to what happened after the second match, really.
Yeah, it did. So I mean, Charlotte is seemingly unconscious, having run into the turnbuckle. At this point, the crowd are going absolutely nuts, urging Bayley to cash in. And after some hesitation, Bayley hands a briefcase over to the referee. The referee calls for the bell. The match begins. Bayley goes to the top turnbuckle, nails a flying elbow, hooks a leg, gets the 3 count. Bayley successfully cashes in her briefcase, all in the same night, and we have a new SmackDown Women's Champion in Bayley. So I could imagine you doing kind of cartwheels around the living room when this happened here, Matt. And I think that this was great to put Bayley in the spotlight. Certainly, made her one of the highlights of the whole night. To be honest with you, with her successfully unhooking the briefcase, cashing in, and kind of winning the championship over Charlotte here. So definitely a good positive spin on Becky losing one of her championships, and Bayley as the new SmackDown Women's Champion. So how pleased were you when this happened?
See, I was really pleased because I like Bayley, and I'm glad that Charlotte only held the title for like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
well, it still counts. But at the same time, they've been kind of building this new attitude for Bayley, which I suppose she kind of showed by cashing against Charlotte. But what I kind of hoped you would see would be like a proper heel turn, and then she'd decide to cash in the briefcase, give it to the referee, but then bypass Charlotte and go and grab Becky and pin her instead.
Right.
So I kind of part of me was thinking, is that the angle they're going to go? But I was still
good point. I hadn't thought of that one. Yeah.
But I think if they were committed to doing that, I mean, it still kind of shows like the attitude development and stuff like that of the character. So, and it's still Bayley and she's still a champion, so I'm still happy. I don't know. I think I was in quite a heelish mood. I was really hoping that Dominic had beat up Ray. I was hoping that he'd turn on Becky. So I think it was just in one of those moods watching it, I think.
Yeah, it could still happen. There's a lot of talk out there about possibly Bayley turning heel, but she's a champion for now. I don't know, maybe her pure babyface gimmick has seen better days, and maybe it's time for a change. But we will see, and like I say, might see further development in that this coming Tuesday. But yeah, let's make the most of it. And Bayley she's the first Grand Slam champion from what I understand. So she's won every women's championship available to her within the WWE. So she was obviously the NXT champion, the Raw champion, the women's champion, tag team champion. So that's something that Charlotte's not been able to do yet, is win the tag team titles. I don't think I'm missing any championships there, but she's the first ever women's Grand Slam champion. So she has kind of got one up over Charlotte there. So yeah, the company must be kind of coming round to Bayley eventually. But no, good for her, good for her. But yeah, I would like to see a darker Bayley, and maybe we'll get that. But I got a sneaking suspicion that Bayley could be going up against Sasha Banks. I think when Sasha Banks returns, and I got a sneaking suspicion she will return, I think that they're going to be kind of putting them two in the ring together. So that could be interesting, especially with everything that's happened. And you've also got to ask yourself, did they give Bayley the championship to possibly maybe, I don't know, put two fingers up at Sasha for her behaviour? Yeah, it's very interesting at the minute, but I'm not going to complain over Bayley being the champion. We move on to our next match, but which is meant to be between Roman Reigns and Elias. But before Reigns can even make his entrance, we see Elias sneak up behind him as he's kind of walking through the corridors backstage before smashing his guitar across the back of the big dog. Elias then goes on to give one of his live performances, which was very entertaining. However, in a fairly predictable turn of events, Roman Reigns comes out from the back, nailing Elias with a Superman punch on the stage. One spear later, Roman Reigns covers and gets the 3 count. So I think the outcome was fairly predictable. I don't think anybody was expecting the attack backstage beforehand. I like Elias. I'm a big fan of Elias, but I'd love him to get a big win over somebody, anybody, sometime in the future. Like I say, he's recently been squashed by John Cena, Thugonomics John Cena, of course, at WrestleMania, and the Undertaker the night after WrestleMania, and here Roman Reigns. It's great that he's involved in these kind of storylines with these big characters and getting these matches. But much like Bray Wyatt, when he was kind of falling to all the big superstars, Elias just cannot seem to buy a win. What's your thoughts on kind of this match and kind of how Elias is being treated? Some might consider it a push, but others might consider it a burial. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I do like Elias. I think he's got a good character, and he is good in the ring as well. Not that you ever get to see it very often, but
you don't.
But yeah, I think he deserves a legitimate push. They seem to have settled on the fact that he's been a heel for about 4 or 5 weeks now. So that that's an improvement on what it was like pre-WrestleMania, where you could never really tell from week to week.
Yeah.
But I think introducing him as the biggest acquisition on SmackDown and everything, that you'd like to think they'd be doing something with it. So I'm not sure what they did with this match really, because they had relatively good build for a couple of weeks. There was a reason for it and everything. And so I mean, whether it's that Roman's not anywhere near 100% yet, so maybe he's not going to be doing like a full schedule of full matches and everything. I'm not sure, but it just seemed a bit of a wasted opportunity really, because it had potential to be a decent match.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see, I suppose, going forward as to what next between the two of them.
Yeah, and I know that Elias has been aligned with Shane McMahon on the weekly TV. So there could be something there. I don't know. I mean, there's some rumours out there that Shane could be a possible opponent for Roman Reigns somewhere down the line. So that might kind of end his storyline feud with The Miz. That could be quite interesting. But I'd like them to do a bit more with Elias and a bit more with Elias against Roman Reigns. I think there's something there that could be capitalised on. But we shall see. I'd just like to see them do a bit more with Elias in general, to be honest with you, and give him a couple of wins. I can't remember the last time I saw Elias get a win at all. Yeah. Then we get our next match. And this was probably the match that most people were looking forward to going into Money in the Bank. And this was for the Universal Championship, Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles. These two could easily be, considered two of the best wrestlers in the WWE right now, definitely inside the top 5 or maybe the top 10 wrestlers in the whole world. But this match starts to pick up when the two went onto the ring apron, where Rollins blocks an attempted Styles clash on the apron, only to be nailed with a knee. Rollins then counters with a suicide dive through the ropes, and he follows it up with the second dive. Back inside the ring, Rollins hits AJ Styles with a buckle bomb and a top rope splash, a splash that even Montez Ford from the Street Profits would have been proud of. He gets a 2 count from that. AJ Styles and gets a 2 count from a rack bomb. Seth Rollins then hits a crazy inverted suplex, hanging onto AJ in order to give him a Falcon Arrow for another 2 count. AJ is able to turn a curb stomp into a Styles Clash, which was a pretty good move, and they got a really crazy near fall there. Rollins hits a ripcord knee, followed by a super kick and a curb stomp, and those 3 moves combined, finishing with a curb stomp, got the eventual win in this excellent match that went nearly 20 minutes. So we knew this was going to be a great match going into it. But what did you think? I thought it was a pretty good match. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, it was definitely the best match of the night, in my opinion. Probably one of the best matches of the year. I know it's got some stiff NXT competition for match of the year at the moment, but yeah, I mean, it was great. It was back and forth. Both guys were pulling out moves that you don't normally see them do, which is good. So they're not just stuck to their own 5 moves of doom. I think like the rack bomb from AJ, then like the reverse superplex and everything from Seth, it was fantastic. There's one bit as well where AJ ran into a super kick in the corner, and then they showed the slow motion replay of it, and the way AJ just collapsed on the impact and stuff like that. That's just what sets him aside from everyone else, because you can't. It did look like he'd had his head kicked off his shoulders almost. So, but I really enjoyed it. I think it was on the reverse superplex. I think that's where the Zowie Wowie chant started in the crowd, instead of replacing the holy shit chants or the this is awesome chants. So, it was to use the obvious word, it was a phenomenal match. And the build for it was really simple. They didn't do anything that's not been done before. They had the tag match where they one hit the other and all that stuff. So they didn't do anything special with it. It's just it worked. So I think everyone was invested in the match. Everyone wanted to see it. I don't think anyone particularly thought that Seth was going to lose, because he's only just won the title. But there were times, like especially when he reversed the curb stomp into the Styles Clash. I think even the cameraman or the director did as well, because like when he went to pin him, it did pan out. It's like the wide shot, so you'd get the fan reaction. Yeah. It was overall it was a fantastic match, and really really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back and watch that a second time this afternoon, because it was a pretty special match. I think the crowd were definitely into it. Definitely up there with one of the matches of the year. So brilliant. Moving on to the next. Well, I don't know if this can even be classed as a match, but you had the Lucha house party in the ring with their piñatas. I'm not even sure what the purpose of this was, except to introduce Lars Sullivan, who we've seen on our screens for the last few weeks. And essentially all I've got written down here is Lars killed the Lucha house party. And that's pretty much it. But Lars did appear to get busted open. I think Kalisto, when they kind of were in one of the early exchanges in this kind of fight, might have kind of cut Lars Sullivan's head open. Somehow he seemed to be between him and Samoa Joe. I think we've seen more blood in this pay-per-view than we have done in many years in the WWE. But Lars Sullivan essentially killed the house party. Then we get an advert for TakeOver 25, taking place on Saturday the 1st of June. Matches announced so far. 2 very impressive matches. You've got Io Shirai versus Shayna Baszler for Shayna's NXT Women's Championship. That'll be one hell of a match. And Johnny Gargano defending his NXT Championship against Adam Cole, and we know that they had an awesome 5-star match, 2 out of 3 falls match at TakeOver New York, and myself and Matt, we reviewed TakeOver New York and that match last month. But what are your initial thoughts about these 2 matches for TakeOver 25, Io Shirai and Shayna Baszler, and Gargano versus Cole? Looking forward to those?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it says a lot that a teaser advert for NXT TakeOver 25 was far more interesting and entertaining than Lars Sullivan destroying the Lucha House Party. So
yeah,
definitely looking forward to that. You could just put those 2 matches on a pay-per-view, give them an hour each, and I think people would be pretty impressed, and they'd go home quite happy from that, to be honest.
Yeah. Speaking of kind of teaser adverts, I don't know if you caught this as well, but there was an advert for the Velveteen Dream, And I kind of nearly had a mini heart attack thinking that he was going to be called up to the main roster anytime now. I thought it was an advert for coming soon to Raw or coming soon to SmackDown of Velveteen Dream. And I'm kind of dreading that day, to be honest with you, because I think he's much more suited to NXT. And then they said brought up on the graphic at the end of the advert this Wednesday on NXT, and I breathed a bit of a sigh of relief. So I don't want WWE to call him up too soon. I'd rather him do what he's doing best on NXT, which I think is where he's at his best. But let's move on to our next match, and this one is for the WWE Championship. So Kofi Kingston, of course, won the WWE Championship over Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania, and he goes up against Kevin Owens here. So ahead of this match, what were your kind of thoughts going into the match? Were you looking forward to this one? What are your thoughts on the build to this match as well, Matt? Tell us what you think.
Yeah, I was quite looking forward to this. I like Kofi. I like him as a champion, and I like Kevin Owens. I think the build's been pretty good, although I think it was maybe accelerated a bit too quickly. I think with the whole Big O thing could have maybe gone on for a few weeks and maybe had a different challenger for the title at this pay-per-view, and that's maybe where Kevin Owens turns on him. But they did accelerate it a little bit, but it's been quite good. It's been beat downs every week, Sami Zayn getting involved and Xavier Woods getting involved, and it's been good, and it's kind of showing like the fight inside to Kofi as well, rather than just being the fun pancake sharing New Day member. So I was looking forward to going into it, and I wasn't disappointed at the end of it either.
Yeah, just talk through some of the key spots here. So Owens takes control with a super kick and a vicious senton for an early 2 count. Kofi takes a bit of a double bump, first into the ring post and then into the cameraman as he falls from the ring post before Owens hits a frog splash off the ring apron onto Kofi on the floor. That was a pretty cool sequence of moves there. Owens gets a back body dropped into the turnbuckle, almost landed on his head in the process. Kingston attempts a double axe handle from the top turnbuckle onto Owens on the outside, only to be nailed with a picture perfect super kick from Owens in midair. Owens does gets a close near fall from a pop-up powerbomb with Kofi kicking out on the last split second there. Kofi manages to hit the Trouble in Paradise with Owens being knocked out of the ring, preventing Kofi from being able to cover. Owens hits a stunner for another close near fall. Owens goes for a swanton bomb with Kofi raising his knees just in time to block the move. Kofi connects with Trouble in Paradise minus footwear. I don't know quite what happened to his footwear there, but minus footwear, hits the Trouble in Paradise, gets the cover and gets the 3 count as well. So Kofi Kingston successfully retains his WWE Championship. I thought it was a really fun match, to be honest with you, and great to see kind of Kofi continue as a champion. I think that there's been a lot of criticism of Kofi Kingston as the WWE champion. I actually think that he's done himself a lot of favours in the last few weeks. I know that he successfully defended his championship on Raw a few weeks ago against Daniel Bryan. I think he's come across really, really well on the mic. He's certainly delivering in the ring, and I think the longer they keep the title on him, the more kind of credible he's coming across as the champion. But I'm enjoying Kofi's reign, and I really enjoyed this match. But what did you think overall?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's it was good. It was contrasting styles. Obviously, Kevin Owens is a lot bigger, a lot harder hitting, but obviously he can then do frog splashes and swantons and everything else as well. So, it was a really good match. It kind of shows it's kind of almost like a bit like old fashioned when Brett was champion and he'd come up against a different challenger, and there'd always be bigger men or stronger men, and it's how he overcomes them. And I think Kofi's doing that with a big smile on his face and really putting himself over and being an advert for the product as well.
Definitely, yeah.
I do need to rewatch it to try and work out why Kevin Owens threw his shoes into the I laughed at the time. I don't know if he just decided to take them off, or if something had happened and they nearly came off and he just thought it'd help, or what. I really, really don't know. But apparently there was a WWE.com exclusive that Kofi was reunited with his shoes. So Yeah, but I do feel that I need to rewatch it again just to work that one out a little bit.
Yeah, I had flashbacks of Terry Funk getting chokeslammed by the Undertaker in the cage, and his trainers fired off. And that was quite amusing. But we're moving on to our main event now, and this is the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. And I think it was meant to be 8 participants, down to 7 now. We got Andrade, Ali, Ricochet, Randy Orton, Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, Finn Balor, but no Sami Zayn, having been attacked backstage earlier on. So we start with just 7 men going into this match. I was really excited for Ali, Andrade, Finn Balor, and Ricochet to see them in a main event of a WWE pay-per-view, which is quite a rare occurrence for those 4 individuals, and to see what they could do in this type of match. Obviously, with ladders being involved, we know that Ali and Ricochet are going to have some pretty fun spots there. As it turned out, pretty much everybody involved in this match got put through the ringer with the ladders. But Drew McIntyre, going into it, was my favourite. To be honest with you, I did kind of have Drew McIntyre pegged to win this, and I think Drew was a lot of people's favourite because he's had a bit of a stop and start push in the last year or so, with a lot of people expecting him to be contending for one of the championships, or possibly to be holding one of the championships by now. So a lot of people were kind of quite high on Drew McIntyre going into this match, but you never know which way Vince is going to go in a match like this. He could go back to the old faithful with Randy Orton, or he could go with Baron Corbin just to mess about with the fans, to be honest with you. But going into some of the key spots in this match, Randy Orton wastes no time in dumping Ali, Finn Balor, and Ricochet onto the announcers' desks on the outside, allowing him a bit of free time and a clear ring to climb a ladder. This attempt was stopped by Andrade, who springboards himself into the ring and drop kicks the ladder, knocking the ladder over. There's a spot where Andrade performs a sunset flip powerbomb on Finn Balor off the top of the ladder in the middle of the ring, onto a ladder that was set up, propped against the middle rope and one of the rungs of the ladder set up, and this awesome kind of sunset power bomb on Balor. And it's kind of a bit of a double impact, really, because not only does he hit the ladder the first time, but when the ladder kind of bounces down and then up again, it catches Finn Balor for a second time, and that was pretty awesome to watch. You've got to feel for Finn Balor's back the following day. Ali performs the Spanish Fly with Andrade off one of the ladders. Everyone is going through the wars in this match. Corbin chokeslams Ali through the announcer's desk. Corbin then chokeslams Balor onto one of the ladders set up on its side in the ring. So that looked pretty painful because there's absolutely no give there at all. McIntyre then pretty much kills Balor, Andrade, and then Ricochet both throw in Ricochet over the top rope and through a ladder set up on the ringside. Then Ali looks set to unhook the briefcase, but then the music of the Beast, Brock Lesnar, comes over the speakers before Lesnar races down to the ring, pushes the ladder, carrying Ali over. Lesnar climbs the ladder, and he is the unannounced 8th man, unhooks the briefcase, and becomes the Beast in the Bank. What an ending to a pretty good pay-per-view, an excellent match and an excellent main event. Matt, I'd love to know your thoughts on kind of the match in general, some of the key spots, and that ending involving Brock Lesnar.
Bar for the ending, I think it was one of the best sort of Money in the Bank ladder matches there's been. The amount of spots in there, all 7 people that participate in it, really got involved. No one likes Baron Corbin, but he was still involved quite heavily in the match, and and they all worked together to put on what was a fantastic match. And then I don't know, then Brock Lesnar decides that he's involved and comes down and wins the briefcase. It doesn't really make any sense. And what makes even less sense is from the point where his music started playing, Ali had plenty of time to unhook that.
I noticed that as well, yeah.
But he didn't, so maybe that's a learning point for him. But I mean, the match on the whole was fantastic. I probably agree with you that Drew was probably my favourite going into it, just purely because I think he's ready to be a world champion. He's got the look, he's got the physique. He's he's over. Well, as a heel, he's over really well at the moment. I mean, I would have loved to have seen like Andrade. Probably would have been my sort of personal, like if I got to choose who won, it probably would have been him, because I think he's sort of really impressed since he's been on the main roster, as well as what he did in NXT beforehand. But yeah, some of the bumps were ridiculous. It's like the Finn Balor one where he kind of bounced on the ladder, the Ricochet one over the top rope, and there was plenty in there, and the Spanish Fly by Ali and Andrade was amazing, and it pains me to say, but Michael Cole sold that really well on comms as well. But yeah, it's just the ending. I think it kind of sums up where I'm at with WWE at the moment. They do some fantastic stuff, and like they can put on these amazing matches, and then Brock Lesnar wins or Charlotte wins, and it's like it's just a little bit baffling at the moment. Obviously, Brock Lesnar's a big name, and WWE is a business at the end of the day. But I think there's far better things they could have done with it, and to move the company forward and to keep people interested. It's typical. I'll put my hand up and be a fickle wrestling fan. You want them to do something surprising, you want them to do something different, and then they did, but it wasn't a good surprise.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, shits all over the talent that were in the ring, putting their bodies on the line for 20 odd minutes. And I saw a photo on Twitter this morning of kind of Randy Orton kind of sat on the floor on the outside looking up as kind of Brock was holding the briefcase on top of the ladder, and the look on Randy Orton's face in this photo kind of says it all, really, that they just took all the punishment for however long only for that to happen. And I mean, I said in my prediction show that I really wanted them to kind of make a few new stars in this pay-per-view, and I a lot of my predictions kind of fell short, but this would have been a fantastic match. As I said, at the beginning of reviewing this match, there were so many kind of names that you wouldn't normally consider to be in a main event of a WWE pay-per-view in such a style of match. And that it kind of suited the Alis and the Andrades and the Ricochets and the Finn Balors. And although they were the stars of the match essentially, they kind of get screwed over by a part-timer. I mean, it's definitely a very heelish thing to do. I mean, the WWE are certainly playing us, and and I think that it will be a surprise when he does cash in, because you'll never know when he's going to be around from one week to the next anyway. So it's not going to be predictable when he does cash in, because like I say, he's not often around anyway. But I mean, overall, the match was superb, and it's been described as one of the best Money in the Bank ladder matches in history, up until that ending. And either, like I say, I did pop for Brock Lesnar. I kind of did pop when he came out. But then you kind of think, well, that's kind of shitting over the talent that's in there, and shitting over the fans as well. And it's obviously been done to get a reaction, or has it been done to appease, Brock Lesnar? We shall see what happens there. I think the show overall was really good. I really loved the baby storyline and her kind of winning the ladder match, then cashing in and winning the title. I like the AJ Styles and Seth Rollins match for the Universal Championship. And I thought the main event was excellent, but just that ending does leave a bit of a sour taste in your mouth. But I suppose Brock Lesnar's a bit like Marmite, to be honest with you, either love it or hate it. What's your kind of thoughts on the show overall then, Matt? I'm definitely giving it a thumbs up. What about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I enjoyed it to the point that I stayed up till 4 a.m. watching it still. So it's there was plenty of highlights. There's plenty of good things. I think the cage match didn't really do it for me. The Elias and Roman Reigns match wasn't a match, really, was it? But so there's a few down points to it, including like the kind of like the big ending. But I think both ladder matches, both the men's title matches, like the Bayley story and sort of like the women's champions matches and stuff like that. All of that was really good. There was definitely way more positives to take out of it than negatives. And then just sort of see where it goes from there now.
Yeah, definitely. It would be fun to see kind of how it develops over the next few weeks and months. Yes, that kind of brings us to an end of reviewing Money in the Bank. Before we say goodbye to Matt, I just want to kind of cover off what content we'll be covering here on the podcast over the next few weeks, because there's plenty coming at you. So on this week's kind of standard episode of Wrestling with Johners, we're going to be doing our AEW Double or Nothing prediction or preview show alongside the usual NXT and NXT UK and all the hot topics from the week. That will be dropping either Thursday or Friday this week. This coming Saturday, we will, of course, we'll all be watching Double or Nothing, which will receive the full Wrestling with Johners treatment, and our review show will be dropping soon after. I think we're going to try to record the review show on the Sunday or the Monday following Saturday's show with special guest hosts and Wrestling with Johners Facebook followers and listeners to the podcast, Ash Crawford and Chris Thornton. We'll then be airing our usual weekly episode later on that week, which will include our TakeOver 25 predictions and the usual NXT and NXT UK, sorry. And then on Saturday, the 1st of June, we've obviously got NXT 25, and we'll be reviewing that on Sunday, the 2nd of June, with David Anderson dropping by. And David's been on the podcast quite a few times. Looking forward to hear what David has to say about the Black and Gold brand. So plenty to look forward to on the Wrestling with Johners podcast. So Matt, just want to kind of get your opinion on AEW and Double or Nothing. Will you be watching? Are you looking forward to it? If so, kind of what in particular stands out, and what matches are you looking forward to, if any at all?
As it stands, because of work and other things, I probably won't be watching it live, but I will be trying to watch it as soon as possible afterwards. I'm definitely intrigued as to what they're going to do, and it's going to take a while to really see the impact on the industry. But but hopefully, even there won't necessarily be a viable challenger to WWE anytime soon, but they might make them stop and think, and hopefully, sort of creatively, it'll be sort of a bit of a catalyst. Because those of us that are old enough to remember, like the peak of like the Monday Night Wars. Like it was a case of trying to outdo each other, and WWE haven't had to do that for a long time now. So if there is a new kid on the block that's gonna make him stand up and pay attention, then hopefully it'll, for us as wrestling fans, we'll reap all the benefits from it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I've already got my pay-per-view purchased. Looking forward to Saturday night. But it should be a good show. We'll be, like I say, previewing it on this coming week's episode of Wrestling with Johners, and we'll be reviewing it on the Sunday or the Monday following the show. But that's pretty much it. Thank you, Matt, for dropping on the pod once again. It's much appreciated as always to get your views and your insight into pay-per-views and our kind of NXT shows. But thank you. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, always a pleasure to come on, mate.
No problem at all. So that's it from this episode, this special episode of Wrestling with Johners. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and shout about this podcast. Tell your friends and tell your family, and keep listening to the Wrestling with Johners podcast for all of your weekly NXT UK, NXT, WWE and AEW updates. We'll be back later on this week for another episode covering everything that's good about NXT and NXT UK. And of course, as I mentioned, we'll be previewing the AEW's inaugural show, Double or Nothing. But in the meantime, take care, and we'll speak to you all soon.